Impossible is a word to be found only in the Dictionary of Fools.
That is, it's a statement that lands with the weight of an anvil, doesn't it?
It really does. It's aggressive, it's arrogant, and yet when you look at the man who actually said it, it feels almost practically true.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are opening the file on the man who essentially tried to delete the word impossible from the human experience. We are talking about the Emperor of the French, Napoleon Bonaparte.
Right. A man who quite literally redrew the map of the world and, rewrote the rule book on what a single human life can achieve.
Exactly. And I want to set the table properly for you, the listener, right now. Because when we say Napoleon, I think most of us have a very specific, somewhat cartoonish image in our head.
Oh, definitely.
We see the hand tucked into the coat. We see the big bicorn hat. We see the cannons and the guys on horses charging across a smoky field.
A battlefield genius. The warmonger. The caricature. Right. And looking at the stack of sources we have for this deep dive, the biographies, the timelines, the analysis of his administration, it would be very, very easy for us to just get lost in the smoke of those battles.
Yeah, we could easily spend an hour just talking about flank maneuvers and cavalry charges.
We really could. But the mission for this deep dive is different.
It has to be. Because if you only look at the battles, you are completely missing the engine that drove the car. You see the victory, but you don't understand the capacity that made that victory possible.
We want to understand the velocity.
Yes, the sheer speed and the structure. We really want to look at the specific nature of his reforms.
Because the source material we are working with today paints a picture of a man who wasn't just a general.
No, not at all. He was an administrator, he was a reformer, a logistician, and perhaps most importantly, he was a man driven by extreme, almost terrifying necessity.
That is the part that surprised me the most in the reading. We see the statues of him looking regal, untouchable, carved in marble. But the real story starts with a kid who is absolutely scrambling.
Scrambling is the perfect word. He is clawing his way up a cliff face, basically without a safety rope, for the entire first half of his life.
So, to the listener, you know the name, you probably know the hat. But do you really know the timeline?
The timeline is key.
Because when you actually break down the dates, which we're going to do, month by month, in some cases, the speed at which this happens is the real story. It is frantic. It's not a steady climb. It's a rocket launch.
It is a lifetime of achievement compressed into a diamond. Most historical figures have, one big moment. Napoleon had about 40, and he packed them all into 2 decades.
So let's unpack this. Let's go back to the very beginning. Because to understand the emperor, you really have to understand where he came from.
Context is everything here.
We are in Section 1, the Corsican outsider. We are in the town of, the notes here say, Ahachi. Oh, I'm assuming that's a phonetic spelling from our transcription software.
Yeah, that is definitely a spectacular phonetic attempt. It's Ajaccio.
Ajaccio, Corsica.
Right, and the date is August 15th, 1769.
Now, I want to pause on the family section of our source material, because I think there is a really common misconception that Napoleon was born into the French elite.
Oh, yeah, that he was some sort of Parisian blue blood just waiting for his turn at the throne.
Exactly.
Far from it. He wasn't even barely French, culturally speaking. You have to remember, Corsica had only very recently come under French control.
Right.
It was an island with a very distinct Italian flavor. It was a rugged culture of clans and vendettas. He was born an islander, not a continental aristocrat.
Let's look at the parents. We have his father, listed here in the source notes, as Karl Obi-Wan Ebert. Yeah, I feel like our research algorithm had a bit of a hallucination there.
That is an amazing autocorrect fail. We are talking about Carlo Bonaparte.
Carlo Bonaparte, a lawyer and a diplomat.
Yes, and a man who was very, very good at navigating the changing political tides of the island. He was highly adaptable.
And the mother, Letizia Romolino. The notes here again with some interesting phonetics. Letizia Romolino describe her specifically as a housekeeper.
That description, housekeeper, is fascinating, and we need to be careful with how we interpret it.
How so?
Well, it doesn't mean she was a maid for someone else. It implies a domestic focus, a working household. She ran the home.
Okay, that makes sense.
They weren't peasants, let's be clear about that. They had a crest. They had some local status in Corsica.
Right.
But compared to the high nobility of Versailles, the people wearing powdered wigs and silk stockings in Paris, the Bonapartes were absolute nobodies.
They were big fish in a very small pond.
Exactly. And that distinction really matters, because when Napoleon eventually leaves that pond, he feels that difference deep in his bones. He knows he isn't one of them.
That's the main takeaway insight here, isn't it?
Absolutely. Think about the trajectory. He ends up as the absolute ruler of France. But he starts as the son of a lawyer and a strict mother on a rugged, isolated island.
He is an outsider in every sense of the word.
He isn't part of the system at all. He creates the system.
There is a specific detail in the notes that really stuck out to me regarding this outsider status. The language barrier.
Oh, that's a huge one.
The source says he only began learning French in school at age 10.
Age 10. Think about that for a second.
I am thinking about it. Imagine being the future leader of a nation, the person who is literally going to write its laws and command its armies, and you don't even speak the language until you are a decade old.
It creates a massive distance. It means that when he eventually moves to the French mainland, which he does at age 9, he is entering a world he just doesn't understand.
And a world that doesn't understand him.
Exactly. He speaks with a heavy Corsican accent. He creates this barrier around himself. He is teased for it by the other boys. He is isolated by it.
It effectively makes him a loner, doesn't it?
It forces him inward. If you can't banter with the other kids because your accent is funny, what do? You spend more time reading history books. You spend more time in your own head observing and planning.
So he's 9 years old. He leaves the island. Let's trace that movement from the sources.
He enrolls in a religious school in Autun. The notes say Auden in January 1779.
And what's the purpose of that school?
This is basically a prep school to get his French up to scratch. He has to learn the basics before he can go to the real academy.
Okay, so he's basically just cramming vocabulary.
But he doesn't stay there very long. He's a really quick study. By May of that exact same year, 1779, he transfers.
And this is the crucial step.
Yes. He transfers to a military academy at Brienne-le-Château.
And the source highlights a very specific word regarding his admission to this academy: scholarship.
Yes. Let's really lean into that word.
A scholarship student.
It reinforces the theme we talked about at the beginning, necessity. He isn't paying his way in with massive family riches.
Right.
His father, Carlo, had to pull strings and use his diplomatic connections just to get the boy a spot. Napoleon is there because he needs to be there, and he's on the state's dime.
He is the scholarship kid in a school full of aristocrats.
Exactly. You have other students there who are the sons of dukes and generals. They have money, they have servants, they have fine clothes. And then you have Napoleon.
Foreign accent, funny name, no money.
That puts a chip on your shoulder the size of a cannonball.
A massive one. But it also drives you, doesn't it?
It forces you to be better than them. If you can't outspin them, you have to outthink them. You have to work harder than them just to be considered equal.
So he's in the system, he's surviving Brienne. But now we move to section 2, the pressure cooker.
Because if he had a chip on his shoulder before, what happens next basically turns him into a machine.
This is the higher education phase. But as you look at the sources, don't think of it like a modern university experience with frisbee on the quad and late-night pizza.
Not at all. We are talking about the École Militaire in Paris, admitted in 1784.
The big leagues.
This is West Point, Sandhurst, and Harvard wrapped into one. This is where the elite officers of the French king are made.
He's training to be an artillery officer. Now, I have to ask, why artillery? Why not cavalry? I feel like everyone wants to be the guy on the horse with the sword, right? That's the glory job.
Cavalry and infantry were largely for the high aristocrats. It was about lineage and money. You often had to buy your commission, or you had to have the right family name.
And artillery.
Artillery was math. It was science. It was ballistics, trajectory, logistics, weight calculation.
It was the nerds table.
In a way, yes. But the lethal nerds.
I love that. Lethal nerds.
It was the one branch of the military where you couldn't just fake it because your dad was a duke. You had to be smart.
You actually had to do the math.
You had to do the calculation to make sure the cannonball landed on the target and not on your own men. It appealed to his orderly mind, and frankly, it was one of the few doors genuinely open to someone of his social standing.
But here comes the curveball in the timeline. He's in Paris, he's studying hard, and then the source mentions a specific event that changes absolutely everything.
His father dies.
Carlo passes away.
And the immediate consequence isn't just grief for a young man. It's financial ruin.
The source is very explicit about this. The father's death reduced the family income drastically.
The Bonaparte family was large. He had many siblings back in Corsica. With the father gone, the money just stops.
So Napoleon is in Paris at this incredibly elite school, and suddenly the clock starts ticking very fast.
He is forced, and force is the key word here, to complete a 2-year course in just 1 year.
Let's pause and let the listener process that. A 2-year elite military curriculum. The hardest school in the country. And he does it in 1 year.
Because he had to.
He didn't do it because he was bored. He didn't do it because he was a show-off.
He did it because he literally couldn't afford the tuition and room and board for a second year. He was completely broke.
If he stayed for the second year,
he would have run out of funds and been sent home in disgrace.
That is a major character-defining moment. We often look for the spark of genius in these historical figures, but sometimes the spark is just raw desperation.
It's the ultimate sink-or-swim moment. He had to absorb information faster than anyone else, because if he didn't, he would have to drop out and return to Corsica as a failure.
So he learned to process data at an inhuman speed.
Because his survival depended on it.
And he swam.
He swam faster than anyone. The notes highlight he became the first Corsican to graduate from the École Militaire.
The very first. That's quite a badge of honor.
It is. It proves that the outsider has mastered the insider's game. And remember, he graduates as a very young man.
So he graduates, he is out of the pressure cooker of school and thrust into the fire of the real world. This brings us to section 3, the meteoric rise.
And I promise you, the dates here are going to blow your mind.
The timeline from 1785 to 1795 is chaotic.
You have to remember, this is all happening alongside the French Revolution. The whole country is basically catching fire. The king is losing power. The people are rising up.
It's the perfect storm for someone ambitious. Okay, let's track the promotions from the source to illustrate this velocity. September 1785. He graduates.
Right.
He is commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Lafayette Artillery Regiment.
That's a standard starting position. He's a nobody junior officer. He is garrisoned in boring towns, reading books, eating cheap bread.
Fast forward 7 years to 1792. He is promoted to captain in the regular army.
So that's 7 years for one major promotion. That is a steady, normal climb. If the world had stayed sane, he probably would have retired as a colonel, maybe a general if he was really lucky, at age 60.
But the world didn't stay sane. The accelerator gets stuck to the floor. 1793, he is promoted to brigadier general.
From captain to brigadier general in a year.
Wait, really? I need to do the math here. Born in 1769 at 1793, he is 24 years old.
He is 24 years old.
Yeah, a brigadier general at 24. I mean, at 24, I was still trying to figure out how to do my own taxes and maybe get a promotion to senior associate. He's commanding armies.
It really highlights the absolute chaos of the times.
Mm-hmm.
The revolution had guillotined or exiled most of the aristocratic generals.
The people who used to run the army were just gone.
There was a massive vacuum of leadership. And into that vacuum steps a competent, hyper-educated, desperate young man who knows artillery better than anyone else alive.
It's almost unheard of in modern contexts. You don't see 24-year-old generals today.
No. And it speaks to his specific competence. He didn't just get the rank because he knew the right people. He got it because he performed, specifically at the Siege of Toulon, where his artillery tactics were decisive.
He saw a solution where the older generals just saw a stalemate.
Exactly.
But before we get to more battles, we have to address his home life again. Because 1793 wasn't just a remarkably good year for his career. It was a terrible year for his identity as a Corsican.
The Corsican split. This is a very painful moment for him.
The source mentions a split with Paoli. Who is Paoli?
Pasquale Paoli was the prominent Corsican nationalist leader, the hero of the island, the George Washington of Corsica, effectively.
And Napoleon grew up idolizing him, right?
He did. He wanted to be Paoli's right-hand man. He desperately wanted to be the hero of Corsican independence.
But in 1793, that relationship completely falls apart.
Completely. Paoli's was leaning towards the British. He was very suspicious of the radical French Revolution.
And Napoleon.
Napoleon, however, was aligned with the French Revolution. It became a civil war within a civil war.
And the result is drastic.
Napoleon and his entire family, his mother Letizia, his brothers and sisters, they have to flee. They shift base to France.
This feels like a closing door.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
It permanently cements his identity. He could no longer be the Corsican nationalist. He is now fully and committedly French.
He has burned the bridge behind him.
He has no home to go back to. He must succeed in France because he has literally nowhere else to go.
So he's in France. He's a general. And he's put in charge of the artillery of France's Army of Italy.
This is his real testing ground.
The source says he adhered to his plans, and the army captured the north, east, and west coasts.
Just systematic. He used maps in a way others simply didn't. He visualized the terrain.
And we get a specific victory mentioned in the outline, the Battle of Seorgio in 1795.
That would be the Battle of Seorgio. It's a key moment. It proves that his strategies using terrain, moving guns fast, actually work on the ground, not just in the classroom.
And politically, he's making moves too. It's not just about the battlefield.
No, he's very savvy. The source notes that in 1795, the Directory took control of the country.
The Directory. Can we define that for the listener?
Think of it as a committee of 5 men who were trying to run France after the sheer craziness of the Reign of Terror. They were shaky, they were unpopular, they needed muscle to stay in power.
And Napoleon?
He became their muscle. He supported them. He strategically aligned himself with the new power structure. And because of his military success, he became their trusted advisor on military matters.
So by 26, he's a general, a trusted advisor to the government, and a proven victor.
But he's just getting started. This is just the prologue.
Here is where it gets really interesting. Section 4, the transformation of the Army of Italy.
This is 1796.
He completely takes over the working of the Army of Italy. He's 26. Now, the source has a very specific description of this army before Napoleon gets his hands on it.
Underfed and disgruntled.
Underfed and disgruntled. That sounds like a bad Yelp review for a restaurant. But for an army, that's a disaster waiting to happen.
It's a broken tool. You cannot fight if you cannot eat. These men had no boots. Their uniforms were rags. They hadn't been paid in months.
They were mutinous.
They were completely ready to quit.
So what does he do? How do you fix that? Do you just threaten them?
No. Threats don't work on starving men. This is where the administrator side of him really comes in.
Right.
It wasn't just about drawing arrows on a map. It was logistics. He bullied the local governments to give him money. He found shoe manufacturers. He secured bread.
He fixed the underfed part.
Exactly. He basically acted as his own supply chain manager.
And the disgruntled part.
That's morale. He gave them a purpose. He made them these famous speeches. I will lead you into the most fertile plains on earth. Rich provinces, great cities will be in your power.
He promised them glory and loot.
And this is the vital key he delivered.
Success breeds success.
Exactly. The source notes the result. A great victory over Austria. He took a broken army, marched them over the Alps, and beat a global superpower. He turned a ragtag group into a legendary fighting force almost overnight.
That is the turnaround artist in action. But amidst all this fighting and reforming, the guy finds time for a love life.
The personal life interlude.
March 9th, 1796.
He gets married.
To Josephine. The notes say Josephine Dove Ahern Ace, which I am assuming is another autocorrect gem.
Yes, that is Josephine de Beauharnais, a widow. She was older than him. She had deep connections in Parisian society. She was elegant, sophisticated, everything he frankly wasn't.
And note the timing the outline gave us, March 1796.
He gets married and leaves to take command of the Army of Italy almost simultaneously, literally days later.
It's that velocity again. Everything is happening at once. His personal life and his professional life are exploding forward at the exact same time.
He's writing these passionate, almost crazy love letters to her while he's planning artillery bombardments.
It shows the intensity of the man. He didn't do anything halfway. He warred with intensity and he loved with intensity. He was obsessive.
He truly was.
So he's winning in Italy. He's married, but he's looking bigger. Section 5, the architect of the state. This covers the period from 1796 to 1804.
This is where he stops being just a soldier and starts becoming a ruler.
First, expansion. He moves to the Middle East.
Occupying Egypt.
Which is a wild detour when you think about it. Why Egypt?
He wanted to disrupt British trade routes to India. Plus, he had a bit of an Alexander the Great complex. He wanted to conquer the East.
But it wasn't just a military raid, was it?
No. He brought scientists with him, linguists. It was a military expedition, but also a major scientific one.
But he eventually comes back to France, and he makes a very calculated political play.
The source mentions he made plans with Emmanuel Sieyès, listed as Emmanuel Sieyès in your notes.
Sieyès, okay.
They wanted to retain the top positions in the government. The directory, that committee we talked about earlier, was completely failing.
He was corrupt, inefficient.
And the people were tired of it. France was completely ready for a strongman.
This sounds like a coup.
It effectively is. It's the coup of 18 Brumaire. They form a new constitution. And this constitution creates a specific position. First Consul.
And guess who gets that job?
In 1800, Napoleon becomes the First Consul of the French administration.
So what does this actually mean? being First Consul? Is that like a president?
It's like a president with the powers of a king. It means he has the unilateral power to reshape the nation.
And this is where we need to look at the reformer aspect of our mission for this deep dive. Because he wasn't just conquering land, he was rewriting how society functioned.
The source lists a bunch of sectors: economy, legal system, education.
All of them overhauled.
He treated France like a failing startup that needed a complete top-to-bottom restructuring.
Let's break them down. Religious reform.
He made Roman Catholicism the state religion again.
Which is really interesting. Coming out of the revolution, which was very anti-clerical, they were tearing down statues of saints just a few years prior.
It was a stabilizing move. The Concordat of 1801. He realized that the people needed their faith, and he needed the church to support the state.
He didn't do it because he was deeply pious.
He did it because it was intensely pragmatic. It brought order back to the spiritual life of the nation.
And then the big one, the legal reform.
The Napoleonic Code.
We still hear about this today. Why is it so profoundly important?
Before this, France was a total mess of different laws. You had one law in the north, another in the south. Aristocrats had entirely different rules than peasants. It was feudal chaos.
A patchwork.
Napoleon introduced a single standardized code: equality before the law, property rights, a secular state.
It meant that the law was the same for everyone, written down clearly.
And the takeaway here for you, the listener, is huge. If you are living today in a civil law country, like in much of Europe or South America or even Louisiana in the US, you are likely living under a direct descendant of this code.
Exactly. He wasn't just winning battles that ended when the smoke cleared. He was building structures that would last for centuries.
He once said, "My true glory is not to have won 40 battles. Waterloo will erase the memory of so many victories, but what will live forever is my civil code."
Economy, law, education, religion, he is doing it all. And he is doing it while still managing an expanding empire.
It's an incredible workload. He would work 18 hours a day. He would dictate letters to 4 different secretaries at once. He was a micromanager on a continental scale.
But as we know, gravity eventually kicks in, even for Napoleon. Section 6, the fall of the empire.
The turning point.
The source identifies 1810 as a critical moment.
It says the defeat of his army resulted in the fall of the empire. Now, this is a bit of a simplification in the source, as the really big deceits happen a bit later, specifically in Russia in 1812, but the cracks absolutely start showing around 1810.
And the state of the nation.
Bad shape.
The budget.
Devastated.
The officials.
Devastated.
It sounds like the system he built was starting to crack under the immense weight of constant war.
You can only run an engine at redline for so long before it overheats. The country was exhausted.
He had been fighting for nearly 20 years.
The young men were dead. The treasury was empty. The people were just tired of sending their sons to die for glory.
And in the middle of this massive national crisis, we have a dynastic struggle.
The desperate need for an heir.
1810 again. He separates from his first wife, Josephine.
Which is tragic, given their history. They were a true power couple, but she hadn't provided an heir.
And for an emperor, an heir is more important than love.
He needed someone to inherit the throne.
So he remarries. And he doesn't just marry anyone, he marries Marie-Louise.
The daughter of the Emperor of Austria.
The Emperor of Austria, the very guy he was fighting back in Section 4.
It's strictly political. He marries into the family of a former enemy to secure his legacy. He wants royal blood for his son.
It shows how far he has come from the Corsican outsider. Now he is marrying the daughter of the Caesars.
And it works, sort of. They have a son.
Napoleon II, the King of Rome.
So he has the heir, but he's actively losing the empire.
The endgame begins, 1814 to 1821.
1814. The enemies are at the gates of Paris. He surrenders to the Allied force.
But it's not quite over.
1815. He resigns, but he tries one last desperate deal.
The failed negotiation. The source points out he offered to resign if, and it's a big if, his son, Napoleon II, was named emperor.
He's trying to save the dynasty, even as he loses the crown. He wants the Bonaparte brand to continue.
He wants the name to rule France. He wants to secure the succession.
And the coalition, the British, the Prussians, the Russians.
What did they say?
They declined. They weren't going to let a Bonaparte stay on the throne, even a child. They wanted the old kings back. The Bourbons, they wanted to erase the revolution entirely.
So he's out. And the British government isn't taking any chances this time.
No. They deeply feared his return. Remember, he had already escaped exile once before from Elba. Though our notes skip that to focus on the finality here. They weren't going to let him escape again.
So they send him away.
To St. Helena.
A remote island in the southern Atlantic.
It is a rock. It is literally thousands of miles from anywhere. It is damp, it is windy, and it is heavily guarded by the Royal Navy.
I looked it up on a map. It is the very definition of the middle of nowhere.
It is the ultimate isolation for a man who is at the very center of the world. He goes from ruling millions to arguing with a British governor about the quality of his wine.
He dictates his memoirs, trying to control his image for history since he can no longer control the present.
And that's where it ends.
May 5th, 1821.
Longwood, St. Helena.
He dies at the age of 51.
51. That's so profoundly young.
By modern standards, yes. But he had lived 10 lifetimes in those 51 years. His body was completely worn out.
So let's synthesize this life. We started with a quote. Impossible is a word to be found only in the dictionary of fools.
And we ended with a man facing an impossible situation.
He is a tragic irony. The man who refused to believe in the impossible eventually hit a wall he couldn't climb over.
But look at the arc. Look at the data points we covered today. From a scholarship student struggling with money whose father's sudden death forced him to rush his education to the Emperor of the French.
It is the ultimate outsider story.
And it forces us to ask what really drove him. Was it ambition? Or was it that initial fear of poverty, that sheer need to survive the pressure cooker?
I think it's both. You don't get that kind of velocity without profound fear and profound ambition.
Agreed. It's a powerful, volatile cocktail.
It really is.
Before we go, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought. Something that's been nagging at me since we talked about Section 2.
The 2-year course.
Exactly. Consider that single detail again. He completed a 2-year course in 1 year because his father died and the money ran out.
It's a tiny detail in a massive life.
But how much of history hangs on that one detail? If his father hadn't died, if the money hadn't run out, Napoleon would have stayed in school for another full year.
He would have graduated a year later.
He might have missed the specific window of opportunity in the army. He might have completely missed the revolution's opening phases. He might have just been a competent officer who retired at 60.
History is so incredibly fragile. The map of the world might be vastly different today if Carlo Bonaparte had been just a little richer.
It really is wild to think about. A global empire, the Napoleonic Code, the modern map of Europe, all because a student ran out of cash.
It makes you actively wonder what small accidents are shaping our world right now.
That is definitely something to mull over. Thanks for diving in with us.
Always a pleasure.
We'll see you on the next one. Keep learning.